Hi everyone, Nothany Review Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for the most hellish, painful, deadly segment on this channel, the Why You Know Review, where I go over a bunch of records that came out not too long ago, and because I didn't get a chance to review them in full, I go over them in brief, gauntlet style, here. So let's get started! This is the latest LP from this experimental music duo, and I was anticipating it because I thought their last record was a little bit of a snoozer. Thankfully, this new one is heavier, it's a little harder, but I'm not sure if I'm liking the stylistic shift that the duo made here. It's almost as if they're dipping their toes into emo a little bit on this thing while they continue to make this very dark, heavy, noisy, brooding music. It's almost like industrial emo at points. And on paper, I have to say, I do think that that fusion of influences is pretty interesting, but still, I'm not crazy about the production on this thing. I do think there are tracks that could have been a little bit more abrasive. I get that these guys don't want to continue to just try to be that weird experimental black metal duo, and I get that. You know, they don't need to continue to pull from that in order to continue to be an interesting music project. But still, was hoping for something a little bit heavier, a little bit meaner, a little bit gruffer, and also on top of that, some of the musical arrangements on this thing wasn't really feeling them all too much. You know, some of the synth arpeggios and chord progressions just were a little flat to me. Still though, if you're looking for something depressing, bleak, textured, and experimental, look this thing up. Disappointment Island, indeed! I gave this album several shots, and I have to say, each time I came away from it, I just didn't feel anything. This is just one of the blandest records I think is in this band's discography. You know, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. The songwriting is just so wishy-washy and just so Gojira. I mean, I guess the band is sort of playing to their own cliches at this point and doing it so well and just kind of feeding into their own blueprint so cleanly that there's nothing really that stands out about this record to me. You know, I think hardcore fans will probably like it because it's more of what they've come to expect, but the band is just not pushing themselves at all from what I can hear on this new LP. These guys are a Korean experimental rock and post-rock outfit who I found out about a couple of years ago. Really impressed with their last full-length LP that I thought was pretty decent. Some very interesting Asian instrumentation worked into these post-rock arrangements, into these experimental rock songs. On this new LP though, I can't quite put my finger on it, just not as enthralled by it, but I figure I would mention the band in this segment because they do have a new album out. If you are looking to try to break down that wall of, you know, just Western music hitting your ears all the time, and you want to hear something from outside the West, then give this thing a shot, because if you're looking for an interesting rock band that does not come from the UK, US, or some English-speaking country, these guys are definitely worth your time, especially if you give that previous record a shot. But if you haven't heard that previous record, maybe this new one over here will wow you a little bit more. You know, to me it just kind of felt like more of the same, but just not quite as bold. But anyway, give these guys a shot. Look this album up. I believe this is released in the US, so these guys are getting a little bit more play over here. So maybe that means they could potentially grow an audience over here in the future. Not totally sure. But again, if you're looking for some experimental rock, if you're looking for a post-rock album from a band that you might not have heard of yet that is outside the US, then give this thing a shot. This new Metronomy record, I was expecting something fun, snappy, funky, something that was going to get me up out of my seat, something catchy, well-written, sharp, fun vocals, incredible lyrics, but I just didn't really get any of that. You know, this album is just so unspectacular in every way, shape, and form. There's just nothing memorable about this record to me. You know, I mean, even though the band's last record, Love Letters, had some really terrible, muddy, and messy production on the deep cuts, at least songs like Love Letters were like good singles. To me, this record didn't even have a single to stand on, in my opinion. There's just nothing really to this album for me. It's just not really that fun or engaging of a record, considering the styles of music that Metronomy pulls from. Pop music, dance music. I mean, shouldn't this stuff be instantaneous and fun and stick to your mind the moment you hear it? None of this is really leaving an impression on me. These guys are a pretty significant experimental rock band, and they have put out a very synth-centric record this time around that has its moments, but overall I'm just not really seeing the appeal of this change in direction that the band is going in with this one. The synths, from what I can hear, do not refresh the band's sound in any way. It's not like the synth sounds or the synth patches are amazing or manipulated or played with in such a way that they sound like mind-blowing. It's not like the synth playing is mind-blowing. Also, the synths are so prominent in the mix on some of these tracks that they drown out other musical details in these songs, whether it be the guitars or the drums or the singing and the lyrics. And again, these synths aren't so interesting that I think they're worthy of such a prominent place in the mix. Again, I understand Toby's need to kind of always push Kayo into some different territory, always try something new. He's a musical adventurer, he's a tinkerer, and that's why I'm just always going to try to give whatever he does next a shot, even if what he's currently doing isn't really like blowing me away. Ty Segall, Charles Moothart, and Chris Shaw formed together into a new band, put out a new record, and if you're familiar with any of the work these guys have put out in the past, you could probably guess very safely what kind of music they're going to be writing on this album. You know, it's going to be garage, or it's going to be punk, or it's going to be psych, or it's going to be lo-fi, or it's going to be some mixture of the four. And this thing is pretty much some garage punk shit. All these guys respectively, prolific as hell, and as a result, not everything they put out is a hit. Not everything they put out is the greatest thing they've ever done. Obviously, they all have their moments every once in a while, and it's clearly as a result of their work ethic, you know, but just all the stuff they put out, not all of it is amazing. I mean, I think the production on this thing is saturated, it's distorted, it's heavy as hell. Some of the riffs on this thing are mean as fuck. They are like Junkyard Dog riffs. They are like Kimbo Slice punching you in the face until your head is essentially tuna salad riffs. But the songwriting is just okay. The vocals are kind of generic, though they are a little gruff and shouty. You know, they definitely match the aggression and the adrenaline of the guitars. It's okay. You know, it's not really all that unique, but it is a pretty fun and exhilarating exercise. And oh yeah. This one makes me want to boogie, boogie, boogie. Boogie, boogie, boogie my way on over to the pause button to fucking pause this thing. This album is like some of the most obnoxious electro house I've ever heard in my life. It's so abrasive. It's so off-kilter. The lead vocals, the guest vocalists on this thing are all terrible, and even when they do manage to pull together an interesting beat, there's some odd wailing, just out-of-place synthesizers or just sound effects or just, I don't know, noises that are just looped into these beats. And it's not even really in a way where when I hear it, I think, whoa, these guys are really subverting the whole electro house formula. They're tearing this electro house apart. They're running in that electro house, they're flipping all that electro furniture on its head, and they're smashing those electro dishes on the electro floor. Rather than sounding really adventurous and game-changing in this genre, and Lord knows that electro house could use a refresher, instead, Mastercraft is about as appealing as a car alarm going off outside your bedroom window at 3 a.m. Can I just feel like this is just a wee bit drab without someone coming up to remind me that it's not another introducing? I know it's not another introducing. I don't think DJ Shadow's ever going to come out with another introducing. And even if he did, it wouldn't be good because introducing is introducing. I don't need him to put out the same album twice. Could it just be possible that the song 3 Ralphs is really boring, or that on the song Depth Charge, DJ Shadow isn't exactly playing to his strengths, and that the Run the Jewels and Ernie Fresh tracks are like the only two memorable moments from this thing. This is kind of one of those weird collaborations where occasionally it sounds like one person is taking the lead and occasionally it sounds like the other person's taking the lead. You know, it's like we're hearing a bunch of Les Claypool songs, but they're accented with some wild wailing Sean Lennon guitars, or we're hearing a little Sean Lennon song but with some kind of trebly, wonky, blah, 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 Les Claypool bass line that really could have been a lot warmer and smoother. You know, there's a reason that this kind of bass tone doesn't exactly sell itself to a psych rock, a psych pop sound. Put Les Claypool with an electric bass on almost any song and he's still going to be doing his usual little Les Claypool jig. And that's fine. That's what his fans sort of come to hear. I just think there are some moments where this collaboration doesn't quite work. There's some decent tracks on this thing though. I think mostly the songs where Les takes the lead and Sean complements what he's doing, but that's just my opinion. It's not exactly an exciting marriage. I think this collaboration is more exciting in name than it is in practice. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. And that has been this relatively pain-free episode of the Why You Know review. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you sitting down, powwowing with me, and listening to me complain about all of these records. Kill me. Transition. Have you given any of these albums a listen? Did you love them? Did you hate them? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Why You Know review, forever.